Gentlemen, it is that exciting time of year again when we have a brand new F1 game. This has been my first opportunity to jump into the gameplay of F1 23, and now we can finally take a good look at what to expect for the upcoming F1 23 game launch. There's a lot of new features and characteristics of the game to look into in this video. There's a lot to talk about, so let's just jump straight in. As you can see, we've just booted up F1 23 and we've got a new start screen. Keep in mind that this is just an early build and I've been provided this pre-build of the game by EA, so I'd like to thank EA and Codemasters for this opportunity. But let's jump straight into play and get on with a Grand Prix mode race. There's a lot of things I want to get a feel for this new game, such as the handling, so the best way to do that is to just jump straight into a race. And we're going to be doing Hungary. Quite clearly, we don't have access to all the tracks yet, but here's a good look at all the cars. As you know, they're not all fully developed yet. Some are, but a lot are going to be changed before the launch of the game. This is where you're able to choose your session length with the new 35% races added to the game. So we're going to be utilizing this new option and seeing what kind of strategies play out for the 35% race against 110 AI. I usually compare myself to 110 AI at the start of each game to get a good yardstick on how difficult the AI is going to be. There's also a new feature added to the game for collisions. You can turn it off for the first lap only. This is mostly applicable to multiplayer, but you could change it so that the players are only able to collide with AI, or leave collisions on for player versus player, or just turn collisions off altogether, so it'll be a ghost for everyone. We're now diving into the setup menu. As you know, there are actually some setup changes that have been added to the F1 game for this year. You can now have 1 to 41 on suspension, 1 to 21 on roll bar, and 30 to 50 on the ride height, which is different from last year. You'll also need to be running a higher brake bias to avoid the rear axle locking, which is pretty noticeable in this game so far. Who knows if they'll change it before launch. And there is a lot more clicks and options to fine tune the tire pressures for this year's game as well, to get very, very specific. Alright, enough of the boring stuff. Let's just jump straight in. And we're in qualifying at the moment, just one-shot quali, and we're going to retire, so we start from the back of the grid. I think we would have qualified somewhere around 9th against 110 AI, which isn't too bad considering I have no practice and this game is very new to everyone, and my setup is definitely not optimal. The cutscenes and cinematics before the race are largely unchanged, it seems. You'll notice that there's a yellow tinge or cinematic effect that has been applied to the game now. We're going to drop the fuel load to somewhere just over 25 laps. I'm not entirely sure what the fuel burn's going to be like. One thing definitely useful so far in this year's game is using a stiffer rear anti-roll bar and rear suspension for rotation in the low speed corners, because these cars are very understeery and low speed now. But it's 5 lights and away we go for the Hungarian Grand Prix. We're driving as Alonso from the back of the grid. Let's see how far up the grid we can get. You'll notice that the clutch bite point already was increased to around halfway up the throttle, which is a lot more than it was around the quarter of last year. So you'll need to apply more throttle to maintain optimal RPM, as we do make up a few positions, getting all the way up to 15th place, and we're going to go up the inside of Zhou as we go through turn 2. You'll notice the UI is completely different. Where the steering wheel is also very different. Closer towards real life, very much enjoyable. They should have made this change a while ago, but I'm here for it. We've got Ocon up ahead, next up on the hard tires. Now, in past, Hungary has been very difficult on the tire temperatures. So far, what I've gathered this year is the tire temperatures are a lot lower because the surface temperature seems to drop a lot more anytime you're going through a straight, and only picks up really for the corners themselves. So you can kind of get away with higher tire pressures in my opinion so far. It also looks like Hungary has had some minor track updates, nothing too major, but the main difference I feel between this game and last year's game is the handling model. It is so much easier to get on power, and you can get on power so much earlier in comparison to last year's game. If you're having a moment and you've got a snap of oversteer, you can have way more chance of correcting the car because you've just got way more time to react to it. We're now attacking Ocon into turn 1. He went defensive and we're going to make that move around the outside with Yuki Tsunoda up next. That's another talking point for this year's game. Is there an improvement to the AI? Without a doubt, in my experience so far, the AI is a lot smarter when racing the player and other AI cars. There's a lot less carnage in terms of hitting the player, and they're just overall a lot smarter. You'll notice as I'm following Tsunoda right now, my engine is overheating. Now, I don't believe that was so much of a factor in F1 22. Whenever I got stuck behind a car, it would take a lot longer for the engine to start heating up. But because of the dirty air created by Tsunoda's car right now, my car is overheating, and it's going to punish people that are just trying to sit in the DRS train, I think, of multiplayer races. Now that we're so close to the back of Tsunoda on the final corner, we have a really good chance here to now make a move and get out of the dirty air from Tsunoda, because we're getting so close through the corners, and we're going to go up the inside as Tsunoda goes defensive, almost going up the back of Hülkenberg. But we managed to get through there with no damage. And as you noticed, they didn't crash into me or anything. I think F1 22 AI probably would have crashed into me then. So I do think there has been a noticeable change in the AI. Keep in mind that this is also equal cars, so this is not the performance of each car. Every car is level playing field for this race in particular. We have Hülkenberg who's on the hards, but we are also surrounded by other people who are on the medium tires. And it seems as though that the drivers on the hard tires are struggling a bit more than those on the mediums. Not exactly sure if the hards are just a bad tire for this track or in F1 23 in general, or if it's just the AI that are struggling with the harder compounds. We got the inside of Hülkenberg of turn 1, seems to be our most popular overtaking corner of the whole track. So we are up into P11 now as Hülkenberg tries to fight back there. But he's not going to be able to do much on the outside of turn 2. So we do manage to secure P11, and we got Magnussen up next. And you would have noticed in the bottom right corner, if you're paying attention, that as soon as we got away from Hülkenberg, our temperatures dropped from like 131 degrees, and now it's all the way down to 126 degrees. So there is a big difference. I think temperatures change a lot faster, especially with the surface temperatures and the engine temperatures. So that's something to keep an eye out for when you get your hands on F1 23, assuming they don't change too much before now and when the game is launched. In last year's game, the AI were pretty strong around this track in particular. It seems that I'm doing pretty well against 110 AI at the moment. We'll find out just how quick the AI is after the pit stop phase, as we now approach the back of Kevin Magnussen in the other Haas car. The Haas car seem to be doing pretty alright in this race so far. And we're going to go down the inside once again in turn 1. Who would have guessed? And Magnussen's going to actually try and fight this one. Does the old switch back on us. But we've got a much better exit. And we're going to hold on to our first point in P10 of this race. We're only on lap 9. We've got plenty of time to make it up the field and try to score some more points. And while all this is happening, I'm just trying to teach my brain to get on the power faster, because you can be so much more greedy with this handling model. It almost feels like you've got full or medium traction control. That was in F1 22 is now just the default no traction control. So there's way more grip, but that is at the cost of pretty much a lot of understeer through low speed corners. So that's why I was mentioning earlier that I utilized the rear anti-roll bar in particular and stiffen that up to get that extra rotation. And I have a feeling that's where competitive setups are going to go towards for league races and esports. We're on the back of Norris now. We're going to try and line him up for turn 1 here. We've got about half of the battery left, so we've got plenty of opportunity to get past him by using that. And easy enough into turn 1. You can see when we got off the racing line, we did pick up a fair amount of marbles. It seems like the marbles and the grass and gravel animation, or the texture that goes onto the wheels, seems a bit different, and it does look a little bit more realistic as we are now approaching the back of Gasly. And I gotta say, I'm having fun playing this game. I am having a more enjoyable time than I think I had in F1 22 at any point in time. So that's definitely a good sign. I'm getting a positive feeling from this game. So I can't wait until you guys get your hands on it as well. But from this gameplay, let me know what you think in the comment section below. So our projected pit stop strategy is next lap. So we're going to actually come in this lap for the undercut, and hopefully we can get out ahead of Gasly and Perez, who are in front of us. We'll be going onto the soft tire, and we managed to stop the car in time for the pit speed limiter. hopefully we get a good turn in time. I always get this wrong, but I finally mapped my controls correctly to my steering wheel this time, and we've gotten a really good pit stop. So well done to the Aston Martin boys. Tire temps are now back down to 70 degrees, so it'll take a little while to warm them back up, but we'll have the really great grip the soft tire provides to try and get out ahead of the cars that were in front of us before the pit stop phase. Now will be the interesting point of the race to see if our tires start overheating, because that was definitely a big problem in last year's game, on the soft tire in particular, because they overheat a lot more than the mediums or the hards do. And as we come across to start lap 15, you can see a bunch of other cars coming in for the pit stop, and it looks like we are going to jump quite a lot of cars to get us up all the way into P7 currently, but there's still a lot of cars. As you can see, Zhou is still in the mediums. They haven't pitted, and I can imagine that a few ahead of Zhou haven't pitted also. So we've got 10 laps remaining of this race. We've set a purple sector 1. Let's see if we can put the rest of this lap together to try and set the fastest lap of the race. And also let's see if we can try and close the gap to Verstappen, who we know we're definitely racing at this point. There might be a few cars that pop up between us and Verstappen, as there is a 5.8 second gap. And you would have also noticed the watermark that keeps popping up around the screen that's baked into the game, and unfortunately we couldn't get rid of that, and I think that's for every creator, and that's to stop people leaking the game anonymously, as we do end up setting the fastest lap of the race. Let's see if anyone else can beat that. Verstappen is out in front, and it looks like there's no one in between us, so we've taken P2 of the race so far. Russell is behind us though, and I do believe he is catching us, as he does set the fastest lap of the race, so it wasn't very long lasted that we got to keep that extra point. And yeah, Russell is now starting to hunt us down, so the gap's dropped to 0.3 of a second. Now it's down to 0.2. He's all over the back of us. We're going to maybe have to go a bit defensive here to try and keep our position. We could either use our battery and take the defensive line through corners to keep him behind, or we could just let him through and then try to use the DRS and the slipstream to stay with him and try to close the gap to Verstappen, because currently we are closing the gap to Verstappen. It was originally over 5 seconds, and now it's already down to 4.5, but Russell is going to make the move down the inside of turn 1, as pretty much all the other overtakes of this race have taken place. And we're going to try and latch onto the back of Russell now and see if he can drag us along, as he gets a bit squirmy on the exit of turn 2. It's interesting to see the AI making slight mistakes but not spinning completely. And for my eagle-eyed viewers out there, you would have noticed that the number on Russell's car is still green, which is Bahrain spec from this year, as he now currently runs a blue number on the car. So that will probably be updated before the game comes out. But we are still managing to stick with Russell. There is a fair amount of a dirty air effect, as we are now starting to slide around on these tires. But we have stayed within a second, so we will get the benefit from DRS, as we are still closing in the gap to Verstappen. Only a 3-second gap now, but we are starting to run out of laps. So I'm starting to think maybe we should pounce on Russell in a short amount of time to get ahead of him and finish probably in P2. No, actually, Russell is, his car's blown up. Russell is going to have a retirement here. He's out of the race. And he's had an engine or mechanical failure there. He must have had his engine supplied by Alpine for that to happen. But we're going to inherit that free position. We now have just Verstappen ahead of us with a 3.6 second gap. Unfortunately, not many laps to go to close that gap, but it's very interesting to note that we were closing the gap to begin with. So it looks like the AI are a lot, I wouldn't say weaker, but it seems that due to the tire temperatures, you're able to basically keep up with a stronger AI, it seems, and it seems a lot more balanced what the AI is, as Verstappen comes home to win the race. And you'll notice that he's pulled over to the side of the road to celebrate, which I think is also maybe a new characteristic of what the AI do when they finish the race. And I get a little bit of the rear end sliding about as we come across the line to finish in P2, which is pretty realistic considering Alonso's track record so far this year, belonging on the podium. And it also looks like we're going to get driver of the day to top that off. And it looks like we got some slightly new cutscenes. I don't remember this kind of pit scene before when finishing a race, and slightly new celebration scenes for this year's game as well. But yeah, pretty cool. I enjoyed this race. Very much a different handling model, a step in the right direction from Codemasters and EA, so that is very welcome. There might be a little bit less of a skill gap in this year's game compared to years gone by, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this race. Be sure to let me know what you want to see next, and leaving a like on the video helps so much. So if you could leave a like, it'd be much appreciated, and I'll see you all in a brand new video.